Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Camper Report. We have got a big day today, really big day today, because we're going to be talking a little bit of Ravens, that next matchup that we have coming up this next Sunday. And then we're going to also be talking about just kind of the future of this team, as well as just the right moves that Kyle Shanahan has made during the season. But joining me today to talk about it all is none other than Steph Sanchez. I've done I think it's been one show with her, and it was a blast last time, so I had to get her back on. How are you doing today? And great to have you on.
I'm good, Ben, and you've been on my channel too. So yeah, some of my viewers may recognize you as well. But yeah, glad that we were able to get something going for this season, and I'm excited for the show and to talk about this matchup.
Yeah, it's the Ravens. I was telling you backstage. I think matchup wise I think that matchup wise all season long, this is the toughest test that we're going to face all season long. I think the Eagles had glaring weaknesses that you could point to. The Cowboys had, I think, matchups that we could exploit. But I'm looking at this Ravens team, and I mean, you could nitpick here and there, but it's really, really hard to find a weakness. And so it's going to be tough for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see what we do this Sunday. But let's get right into it. I guess I should probably maybe read the comments. Jedi coming in here. Domination. Yeah, the Niners are dominating. But let's see. So let's get right into it. The title of the show was what is the now that the Niners have control of the 1 seed because Philly lost to Seattle yesterday, which was, I think, a huge surprise to me and maybe you guys as well. And then Dallas got blown out by the Bills. What is the motivation level at now that they don't have to win? The 49ers don't have to win this game necessarily because technically they're 2 games ahead of Philly and Dallas.
Yeah, well, the 49ers have to win at least 2 of their last 3, right? And so even though you can say this isn't a must win, but I still see it as a must win. And I think the
Yeah.
49ers
Yeah.
should, and I think they will see it as a must win because what you don't want, basically, if you choose or if you don't play your hardest and you lose this game against the Ravens, I think then you have to win your last 2. And I'm looking at that final game against the Rams, who seem to be like a surging team right now. Let's not forget, they still have a really good, talented quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They have some nice pieces that they're putting together, a lot of young players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But they're surging right now, and they actually gave the Ravens a run for their money. So they're capable of winning a game, I think, against the 49ers because you never know what can happen in a divisional game. I know the 49ers have dominated the Rams, in recent seasons, but I don't know if that's the game I want to say it is a must win. Like I don't know, because if you lose this game against the Ravens, that then becomes a must win for the 49ers. And do you want to go into the final game of the season playing a must win game? Or
Yeah.
do you want to win the previous 2 and have that final game be a resting game because you've already
Yeah.
clinched the 1 seed, right? I would rather have the latter, and I would rather have the 49ers win this game against the Ravens, win against Washington, and be able to rest guys, against the Rams in that final game of the season. So it's not a must win, but it is sort of a must win to me. And as far as like how the 49ers should stay motivated for this one, I think the motivation is in their nature because you're playing a team this late in the season who has the same record as you, who on the AFC side is probably as dominant as you have been, The Ravens are a really good, talented team. And like, the 49ers in the past have stepped up in those moments when it's come to playing the Cowboys, when it's come to playing the Eagles and proving something, right?
Yeah.
They step up for those games and they do it. So I'm looking at this game against the Ravens as that kind of game for the 49ers. It's prime time, it's Christmas, they're going to be wearing their red throwbacks.
True.
I think everything's kind of coming together for the 49ers to rise up to this game and look at it as a must win in their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think as far as respect of the league goes, I know that the 49ers, I mean, they know themselves, or even Brock Purdy knows that there's a lot of people out there saying that everyone can maybe succeed. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can succeed in this system, and there's still people that are saying that, even though I don't think that's true necessarily. I think for a Brock Purdy level, if he can go out and play really well against a Ravens defense that is top 3 in the league, I mean, how many haters would how many people would now respect him after this game if he plays well against one of the best defenses in the league? This defense is so good. I mean, they have Jadeveon Clowney, they have Metabuke, they have Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, and then they have, let me see, they have 2 really good secondary players, Kyle Hamilton, and the other one
Mhm.
is, he's escaping me at the time, but they have a stacked and loaded defense. This is, I don't know if you're considering the Niners the best defense in the league, then this is number 2. But they're a really good defense. So if he can prove it against this team, you gain respect of a lot of different people. And then obviously, like you said, you kind of, I guess it's more of a sure thing that you get the 1 seed. But I mean, the Niners deserve the 1 seed. The Eagles, my brother was saying it yesterday, even if the Eagles had a chance to get the 1 seed, they don't deserve to get it. So I
Right.
think it's just right that they win this game so they gain that respect. So, yeah.
Yeah, the Eagles are
Um,
sort of reeling right now, and
yeah.
I think it's because some of the things that they had been dealing with, even before they played the 49ers is kind of showing up and it's starting to
Yeah.
get exposed by teams, right? So, yeah, I think they're heading in the wrong direction as far as, their season trajectory. And 49ers on the other hand are kind of, in a positive trajectory. And yeah, I mean, this is a really tough defense for the 49ers to face. I think it's a great test. It's potentially a Super Bowl
Mhm.
preview for them. And so I
Yeah.
think when you look at the 49ers offense and you see how hard they are to beat, this is a great measuring stick to really say, okay, can the 49ers actually beat anyone and make it look easy?
Mhm.
Because, like, if they can do it against this Ravens team, I'm gonna feel very freaking convinced that they can go all the way with
Yeah.
this team. And I already do feel pretty great about it, but like I said, this is a big test. So yeah, I think it's the 2 best and best because I'm looking at the offense
Yeah.
of the Ravens as well, and they're a really good offense. Obviously, Lamar Jackson presents a number of different challenges for any defense. And so, yeah, it's going to be a big test for the 49ers defense, especially if they're still dealing with some of the injuries that we've, been experiencing these last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
That'll make it especially difficult for the 49ers. But, you also have this offense in the 49ers that is surging and can prove that they can
Mhm.
carry this team if they need to. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. As a fan of football, I'm really excited about this game,
Mhm.
regardless of the outcome. Of course, I want the 49ers to win. I don't want them to ruin my Christmas. But at the same time, it's like, I just feel like this is going to be such a good and competitive game. And I don't think the NFL has had too many of those this season. At least the 49ers haven't
Yeah.
had too many of those this season either. So I think I would enjoy that for this.
Yeah. For sure. And hey, you don't want to lose in front of you because it's in Niner Stadium, right? correct?
Yeah, it's at Levi's.
Yeah, it's in Levi's. Yeah, so you don't want to lose in front of the home crowd. Not going to be too many happy Niners fans if they do lose. But let's get to a few more of the comments and then we'll get to the next topic, which you touched it on Lamar Jackson. That's, well, actually, no, never mind. That's in a few topics. So we'll get to another topic, but we'll get to Lamar Jackson and a little bit more depth on him in a little bit. Ravens is not Lil Heater says Ravens is not a must win, but we are winning. We winning. Yeah. We'll see. I agree Rams are hungry. They are. I mean, I go back and they have their running back Kyron Williams, really
He's
good.
he's really,
He's a
yep.
talented guy. Um and then the defense, the only thing with them is like the thing that I saw in that Ravens Rams game, because I was kind of going back and seeing what the Rams did right against the Ravens. But defensively, the Rams cornerbacks, like one thing you can't do against the Ravens is play like the Rams cornerbacks were playing a lot of off zone coverage and letting Lamar Jackson get these easy slant routes going and just easy throws that were very short. You can't allow that. And I just think the Rams were playing them. The defense was playing Lamar Jackson in the completely wrong way. So we'll get into that later, but definitely not a great defense on the Rams side of things. Hold on. Playoffs start Monday. I don't know what he means by that.
I think it just means like this is I mean, to look at every game from here on out as a must win. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, even though it's not technically, right? But I think they got to have that
Right,
mindset
right.
to go into the actual playoffs prepared and ready to go against anyone.
Yeah. So we're talking about Niners, kind of their offense. What has Kyle Shanahan done right that has sparked this offense to be the best in the NFL? You can start with this one first. I think there's a few things, but you start.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of argue that the things that Kyle Shanahan is doing well or better than he has in the past is directly because of what Brock Purdy is doing and what he's been bringing to the offense, right? And we've seen Brock Purdy perform and operate this offense even better than he did to end last season. And that's pretty crazy because
Mm-hmm.
he was already doing it at a pretty good, admirable level. But he improved and this was with him not having an off season, but he's improved on a number of different areas. You remember he used to always roll to the left as soon as like he didn't see anyone
Yeah.
open. That'd kind of be like his outlet. He has not done that like out of if he has done that this year, it's been out of necessity. It's not because like that's just his safe space to
Yeah.
go.
Right.
And it's not really like a trend. And also I think we've seen him be able to operate at many levels of the field. Like the entire field is available to this
Right.
team, is available to this offense right now. Really, that's crazy to think about. And so I think the way that Brock Purdy is operating the offense has allowed Kyle Shanahan to
Mm-hmm.
play or call games like he's always wanted to. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is he hasn't really done anything different. I don't think Kyle has. I think at some points it feels like he's throwing more on first and second downs. Like that's a big one. In the past, they've run to set up the pass. This year they kind of do the opposite. And so they can win any which way. It kind of feels like, and I think another thing that Kyle is doing that I think he's always done, but it's a little more obvious now because of just the offense and all these plays being available to him. I think the way that he sets up certain plays.
Yeah.
By hinting other things like in seeing how the defense plays it first and then it becomes a big play later in the game, kind of thing. Like that's something he's always done, but I think it's just gotten better this season with Brock Purdy operating the offense. And I mean, just the way that he gets guys open, that hasn't changed. But I
Yeah.
think, again, with now it's a true threat. Everyone is a true threat
Yeah.
at in every play. I think in the past, because of the way that the offense was somewhat limited, there were certain things that defenses didn't need to necessarily respect always, but now you really
Right.
got to respect everyone. Every one of these weapons and
Mhm.
every single route and every single play. And so I think that's what's different this season and what we're seeing. Brock Purdy, I think, has elevated the ceiling of this offense with what he's brought.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm gonna actually come up with something different. Coordinators, how well he and this isn't even this year, but how well he has done at picking the right coordinators. Because you see,
Yeah.
the Eagles, a big part of their problems are and any because my two brothers are Eagles fan, they will tell you that, their offensive coordinator had, I mean, terrible. Their defensive coordinator, question mark. So if you don't have those coordinators that can kind of and the Chiefs as well, like their receiving coach, they've done a bad job at kind of the last few years at replacing the talent that they've lost at the receiving position. So the ability to pick and develop good coordinators that are going to help your system thrive, that are going to develop guys and their ability to replace guys that they've lost. And so just his ability to kind of get good coordinators in the building. And then I'll also say, we were all questioning his pick at the right tackle. Like, would he be enough for this season? Colton McKivitz, I think, has really improved during the year. And maybe that's not all Kyle Shanahan, but Kyle Shanahan putting the trust in Colton McKivitz, the trust to hand him the keys to kind of holding down that right side. So that's another big one. And then also later on in the year, getting Deebo Samuel way more involved is getting it's making Christian McCaffrey become more free because teams have to focus on both. And I feel like earlier in the year, he hadn't figured that out yet. And another thing, getting Deebo Samuel the ball deep down the field, which is another wrinkle in the offense that we had never ever seen before, and teams had never seen before. And then it's
Mhm.
really started to kind of pay off within these last few games. So those are kind of the three things that, I mean, he's really made some amazing decisions, and he's quieting a lot of people that had question marks on him going into this season. So
I think the coordinator one is a great one to bring up, and when I
yeah,
don't think like I think we every once in a while will be like we'll reflect on how good this current regime has been in finding the right talent as far as the assistants, the coaching and scouts, all of that. But yeah, I don't think this season alone like we've really thought about all of the guys that the 49ers have lost in like the last two
yeah,
seasons and as far as the coaching goes and how Kyle, who has a big hand in that, has been able to find the right guys for the position. Like that is so hard to do. And yeah, I think when you see so many other teams struggle with filling those holes
yeah,
on their coaching staff, I mean, it's one of those things that goes a little underappreciated, but every once in a while when we remember like it's like wow, like
hmm
Kyle knows exactly what he's looking for, and he's done a hell of a job finding the right guys. So yeah, that's definitely an underrated quality of Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. Yeah, that's a big one. I'm glad you mentioned that.
yeah.
And is uh what was the other one you mentioned? The second one had a point on that
It
one as
was
well.
Colton McKivitz.
Yeah, on Cole
Colton
McKivitz, like
McKivitz.
yeah, he has improved. I'm still very adamant on the 49ers finding another tackle, maybe two in this upcoming draft. And I
Yeah.
wish they
Oh
would
yeah,
have, in
definitely.
April as well. But yeah, Cole McKivitz has been fine. I mean, obviously the offensive line hasn't been, as much as we weren't big fans of Mike McGlinchey, the offensive line was
Yeah.
better last season. And I think we see that.
You really
Luckily,
think
Brock
so?
Purdy. Oh, yeah.
You think it was
Statistically, like
better?
yes,
Really?
yes.
Hmm.
The 49ers have
Okay.
like in a lot of different offensive line rankings all throughout the season. They've been in the bottom 10, so they're not great. Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, Trent Williams is Trent Williams, and he's done a great job at,
Yeah.
doing what he does always. But as a whole, the offensive line hasn't been as good. The reason we're not really noticing, though, is because Brock Purdy has done a better job of
Mhm.
working in the pocket, getting balls out quickly, escaping pressure, moving out of the pocket when he needs to, and things like that. Especially in the last few weeks, I kind of feel like he's
Yeah.
gotten even better at that. But maybe Colton McKivitz has improved as the season has gone on. I do think you are right about that, and I also want to give Kyle his props for, I guess, not only Colton McKivitz and trusting that process with him, but bringing in John Feliciano. John Feliciano has
Right. That's
actually
true.
been pretty clutch,
Big one. Yeah.
to be able to play on both sides of the ball. I mean, both sides of the line. You've seen when Aaron Banks was hurt, he filled in at left guard. Now Spencer Burford's hurt, he filled in at right guard. And right now, I think the 49ers are in a position where they can very well say to themselves, "Hey, why don't we just start John Feliciano at right guard the rest of the season or left guard?"
Yeah.
Like they have that flexibility. They have that flexibility, and that's
Yeah, that's
that's a
true.
really great thing, especially to have in your back pocket this late in the season should anything go down. So that was a big pickup for them. So credit to, you know, uh Chris Forrester, offensive line coach, and Kyle for finding that. And John, I'm sure. Yep.
I have a question. Who do you think, if they were to draft a tackle next year, who do you think, is it right tackle or left tackle? I'm saying left tackle.
I think you got to get both. I think the 49ers are
Both,
so
yeah.
talented elsewhere, and I think they've done a good job of sealing up and extending guys who are going to be here for the long haul at some key positions that I don't think they need to necessarily use spread all these picks out in different positions,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of them are pretty set. Um, but I think I would double dip on tackle, because you don't know
Mm,
how much longer Trent Williams is going to play. I mean, you really don't. Who knows?
yeah.
I mean, maybe the 49ers win the Super Bowl this season. He decides to, run off
Yeah,
into the
retire.
sunset and retire. Like that's very much a possibility. Um,
Yeah.
so I would double dip regardless of if Trent comes back or not, just because he is getting up there in age. And I would like to shore up the right side of the line as well. So maybe
Yeah.
they keep Colton McKivitz. I don't know, but I would double dip personally.
Well, and I originally thought, maybe cornerback is kind of a first round possibility as well, drafting a cornerback first round, but the development of Lenore, Ward, and Thomas has really kind of silenced me a little bit, because I'm like, the 49ers could roll the dice again on them. Although maybe they don't re-sign Ward because he's up for an extension this year. So who knows? Um, 49ers throwback says smash the like button. I will get to your super chat in a second. Um, SG Sports Talk channel is in I believe that's Shardal. He's in the house. So welcome. Carcast is in the house. Thank you. Let's get to, I'll get to this comment, then we'll get to the super chat. Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid are the two offensive coaches in the league. Yeah. Andy Reid just needs to get some better receivers, man. They're so bad. It's atrocious this year. So
They're
49ers
yeah, I
go ahead. Go
mean,
ahead.
they're okay. No, I was just gonna say, like, I think they got some talented guys, but clearly Mahomes needs. How much help does Mahomes need, man? He needs
Yeah,
Tyreek
yeah,
Hill
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Kelsey, I guess. Which is a great kind of argument for like what we're seeing with the MVP discussion, where it's like, oh, Brock Purdy doesn't deserve MVP because he has all these weapons. Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
sort of how it works. Like it's a two-way street, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, go ahead. Let's get this super chat here.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a slight the reason why I think I keep interrupting you is I think there's like a slight my internet isn't great
Oh,
here, so
there's
I
like a
think there's like a
delay.
slight delay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I apologize if I a few times interrupt you cuz I think I'm getting a little bit later, but defense
Okay.
the super chat defenses 49ers throwback says defenses don't stack the box on Purdy compared to Jimmy. I think Kyle and the team are starting to like the deep passing because it opens up the run game. Oh, 100%. 100%. You know, I've been saying and actually every Niners fan has been saying, you know, if we even get a resemble if we even not even elite deep passing, if we even get a slight threat in this offense of deep throws, deep passes, like you don't even have to hit every single one each game, but you just have to hit like one or two each game, and then teams are going to respect you. So I've been saying that for so long.
Yeah, just the legit threat of that, I think, uh, would take this offense to an even crazier level than it is right now. I mean, we're seeing Brock Purdy, uh, you know, push the ball downfield, and he could make those throws. So I think this upcoming draft is going to be interesting for the 49ers because now
Mhm.
I don't think you're confined to having to get guys like Debo or guys who can
Mhm.
make plays after the catch. That's always great. Like that's really cool. I love Debo. I love his skill set. I'm sure the 49ers do as well, of course. But now I think you can run this offense with all kinds of different, receivers. And, I actually, the thought of Danny Gray comes to mind because early in the season, I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? They had drafted Danny Gray for Trey Lance because they probably thought, oh, like Trey Lance's skill set, he can probably throw downfield
Yeah.
a little bit more. Well, Trey Lance doesn't work out. And I'm like, that's probably not good for Danny Gray. That's my thought early in the season. Well, now we're seeing Brock Purdy like throw downfield, having no
Mhm.
issues with that. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, Danny Gray's on injured reserve. He's probably going to stay on injured reserve for the rest of this season. But I'm interested to see what he might look
Yeah.
like, or even someone else if
Yeah.
they choose to draft another downfield threat. I'd be very interested to see how that opens things up even further for this offense. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Kyle kind of drafts going forward with Brock Purdy as his quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree. 49ers throwback says one thing I want to see Kyle and the offense get better at is getting more creative in the red zone. Andy Reid is good at that, more like shovel passes, trick plays, QB run, end zone more. I I don't know about okay, real quick before we get to this, how because I forgot to ask you this before the show started. How long can you do this show for? Just to be
Yeah, I'm good for an hour. I think we're like at it 30
okay,
minutes right now. So
30
yeah.
minutes. Cool. Cool. Um, I don't know. Brock Purdy as a running quarterback, I'm not sure about that. And I think we need to keep him as healthy as possible, especially what happened last game and what happened in the Eagles game. He lowers his shoulder. It scares me. Maybe not QB run, but I do agree with you. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's some creative ways you can do it where there's certain plays where you can set it up where no one expects the quarterback to run because he isn't like a running quarterback. So he's
Yeah.
you don't really have the danger of getting hit. Like, the Colts had some plays like that with Peyton Manning. And so, that I agree. Like Andy Reid is so great in the red zone and just doing some little trickeration here and there. Like you just never know what's going to happen. And even when you do kind of know, um, there's just too many possibilities of what could happen that,
Hmm.
you're just a little flustered as a defense. I kind of feel like the 49ers are getting there as far as like the creativity goes. Like, I know it wasn't anything big, but the one touchdown to Debo Samuel where he kind of jogged out of,
Yeah.
his motion and ended up, running then at full speed to get that touchdown. Like that to me that was a little creative wrinkle. Um and
Mhm.
it's not big, but ways you could get guys open, right? Completely open and get easy touchdowns. I think Kyle will work on that. But yeah, it is great to see the growth of this offense so far. And yeah, I just know Kyle will, work in a couple of those creative things as he goes.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. So let's get to a little bit more of the Ravens talk. I don't know if you've watched much of Lamar Jackson. Otherwise, I definitely have a few of my thoughts on him. But how well do you think the Niners will do against him? Since in the past they've struggled against mobile quarterbacks. This is a guy who in 2019 absolutely shredded the 49ers with his running. Then again, he was in his MVP season. He played really well that year, especially in the regular season. That was in Baltimore. We had Jimmy Garoppolo. It was a lot different. Completely different defensive coordinator. But how well do you think they do? How do they need to play him? I want to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I know. Like, everyone talks about how the 49ers have struggled against mobile quarterbacks, but like a lot of defenses do. I actually think the 49ers have played mobile quarterbacks this season pretty well as far as limiting, their running and
Right.
containing them. I think that's been the key for them this season is containment. It's not about like I don't know. It's not about waiting for them to run and hope you have guys in place. Like, they're kind of keeping them in the pocket to begin with, forcing them to throw. Um, and that
Mm-hmm.
has worked. Like Dak, I don't see as like super mobile, but every once in a while you might have that threat. Just something to think about. Geno Smith,
Mm-hmm.
might more or less have that threat. Jalen Hurts definitely had that threat. I thought they did a good job of keeping him in the pocket because
Yeah.
that's kind of like where he struggles the most, right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think these
Right.
past few
Right.
weeks we've kind of seen that. So it worked in their favor. Kyler Murray, and Steve Wilkes said as much too. Same but different. Kyler, I think,
Mm-hmm.
he talked about how he's a little more comfortable throwing in the pocket, how he's getting better at that. And so again, like, I thought they did a decent job of keeping him contained more or less. Uh, but I think Lamar is a different kind of quarterback because
He
he can
is.
do everything well. Like, okay, you want to keep him in the pocket, he's gonna hang in there and he's gonna make a throw.
Throw
Like,
deep. Yeah.
yeah, nothing really doesn't seem like anything really phases him. And so that I think is the struggle. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
play good coverage, good containment, and also you when you do all of those things, oh yeah, and you're gonna have to make sure that he doesn't run out and make some like crazy play or something like that. I think that's the real threat with Lamar's. He can beat you a lot of different ways, and so that's the worry for me. But just the way that the 49ers have been able to I will say this. I'm worried about the injuries and I'm worried about the missed tackles with the 49ers
Yeah.
defense right now. If
You
they can
real quick, if there's any if do you have any news on Lenore? Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
do
no,
is there
I think
anything?
as of yesterday, Kyle said that
Mhm.
he has bruised ribs and he's day to day. So
Okay, that's all right. We need him.
yeah, like that's yeah, I think so too. Obviously, he's been huge for the 49ers secondary. Travis Ward has been
Mhm.
awesome. Uh, you need both of those guys out there so that we can avoid
Yeah.
seeing Isaiah Oliver out there in this game. So hopefully Lenore is able to go. This isn't based on anything that I've seen or heard. I just feel personally, I feel optimistic about Lenore because just the 49ers have
Mhm.
that extra day of rest that should bode well for Lenore being able to play through it or something like that. So, but hopefully he's able to go because obviously I wouldn't feel as confident with this defense going up against Lamar without that. Also, other two key injuries: Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave for a team that runs as much
Mhm.
as the Ravens do. And it's not just Lamar, it is now, Gus Edwards because Keaton Mitchell is out for the season.
That's a
That's
huge loss for them.
it is a huge loss for them. But I also don't want to discount what Gus Edwards can do and
Yeah.
what Justice Hill can do because they're both
Mhm.
different types of runners, but they can also gash you if you aren't careful, right? If you're not wrapping up. If you're missing tackles and like the 49ers have been doing, Gus Edwards can make you pay. Lamar can make you pay. Justice Hill can make you pay. And he's very shifty too. So that's something I don't want to see this week. I think having one or both of Armstead and Hargrave back, I'd feel a lot better about the matchup, right? I think those guys need to be there.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's a little shaky. That being said, on the offensive side for the 49ers, like I think they could score points. So,
Right.
even
Right.
up against that defense. So, I feel good about that. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for the 49ers. I think, like I said earlier in the show, it could be a preview of the Super Bowl. Um, so yeah, hopefully the 49ers defense steps up to that challenge. Like Fred Warner needs to have a vintage Fred Warner game, right? And
Oh,
he
yeah.
has a way of stepping up and playing his best games against best opponents, right? And so I'm expecting a bounce back week from Fred and a big one at that. So they're gonna need it and from the guys on the defensive line to step up as well. Like Javon Kinlaw has been doing, these past few weeks. So yeah, it's gonna be they're gonna need all 11 guys on the field, playing their
Yeah.
best.
I mean, you basically covered it, but I mean, the defensive ends, they can't get too when they're pressuring, you can't get too upfield on Lamar Jackson because then he's just gonna
Mhm.
gash you in the run game. But I mean, it's kind of like pick your poison with him. I feel like the night when from what I've watched of him, if you get pressure on Lamar Jackson, he automatically looks to run. So I feel like if you're the Niners, you have to play press man to man. You can't do this zone stuff off. Just you have to get up in the receiver's face because I think it's if you can at least you know, make the Ravens try to go deep because you're covering everything inside. And I know, they can hit you with the deep ball, but I think it's better than allowing the Ravens just to go down the field with these methodical drives of because they can hit every slant, they can hit every short route. You have to make them go deep because if you can do that, then maybe you allow the defensive line to get a little bit of pressure on Lamar and then he runs the ball, which I know he's a great runner, but I feel like we have linebackers in the second level that can contain him a little bit from picking up huge gains with his legs. Another thing that I think the Niners I mean, I don't think they've seen it all year is the RPO. That's a huge thing that the Ravens run. Now with Keaton Mitchell, the reason why he's such a huge loss is because the speed. I
Mhm.
feel like the big way that you can maybe attack the Niners is by speed. And now with them losing Keaton Mitchell, Gus Edwards is great, like you said, but he's more of a bruiser back, not as explosive. Like for him, it's like he's a running back that you can lean on, but he's not going to get you 40-yard gains like Keaton Mitchell used to. And I think the Niners in the past, they've showed that they kind of are struggle a big time with speed. And so that was a huge loss. Now the Ravens have obviously Lamar Jackson, who's a very speedy quarterback, but they also have Zay Flowers, he's an
Mhm.
explosive guy. But losing Keaton Mitchell, you kind of lose that explosiveness out of the backfield. And so now the 49ers don't have to respect that run game as much. But the RPO is something that I don't know how you attack it. I really don't. That's going to be huge. It's going to be interesting to see how the Niners kind of get that, how they contain Lamar Jackson. But like I said before, if it came down to Lamar Jackson running or beating you through the pass game, I want him to run because I think there's only so much a quarterback can actually run before you can contain him. I believe in our linebackers to contain him. So I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah, I mean, Fred and Greenlaw could definitely work sideline to sideline, and I do think, obviously they're gonna have a big hand in stopping Lamar Jackson, but he's so fast. Like,
yeah,
if they're gonna be like that second level of defense there, and you're hoping that Lamar doesn't get past them, they have to be on point with their angles and wrapping up. Like I said, and these
yeah,
past couple weeks, like, we've seen on and off that's kind of been an issue. So hopefully, they get that sorted out this week, because they're, like I said, they're gonna need to be on point with both of those things if they hope to do that, and stop Lamar.
yeah, for sure. Um, Grandizer coming in here says, "Welcome to the Camper Report. Which direction do you think the 49ers should prioritize via the 2024 free agent?" We've kind of already covered the draft, and I definitely don't want to take too much of your time with this comment. And I think in it's just nice because we'll talk about kind of the future of the team, but I think we're going to, for the years to come, the Niners are going to be very active in the free agent market. So, because they have a cheap quarterback.
Yeah, and I think too, the 49ers have a lot of picks as well. So speaking of the draft, like, that's gonna open things up for them. They don't have to worry about all the picks gave up for Trey Lance. They're gonna have a first
Right.
round pick again. And so the 49ers, we've seen, are smart with the way they use their picks, and the way they use their picks to get more picks, and and all the coaches that have been hired away, they get picks from that too, right? So they've been smart with the way they've kind of created this coaching farm of sorts. And it's led to great things in the draft. Now, as far as free agency goes, yeah, I haven't thought too much about it. Offensive line, probably not going to be something you get in free agency, just because teams aren't giving away free
Hmm.
agents. If anything, the offensive line free agent market is crazy and it's expensive. So I don't know if the 49ers want to go that route. Usually they like to draft, develop for a few years, and then take their gambles on whoever they drafted. Colton McKivitz is an example of that, as have a few others have been as well. So I think they go that route. But aside from that, like, they don't have a lot of like glaring needs. Maybe, man, yeah, I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to remember who's a free agent, but yeah, obviously the biggest need that I see is, special teams players, and then offensive line. So yeah.
Yeah. I want to quickly go back real quick before we move on. I did forget one thing. I think the Niners can actually get, like, the Ravens offensive line isn't super great. Ronnie Stanley, he has been good, but if he plays in this game, because he is in the concussion protocol, if he plays in this game, I think we can get pressure from his side against good edge rushers this season. I mean, Browns, he had a 58.4 pass protection grade versus Myles Garrett. He had a 53 PFF, I guess, pass rushing grade, and that was against primarily against TJ Watt. So against good defensive ends this season, he hasn't done great, Ronnie Stanley. And then they also have a guard John Simpson, who has allowed 8 penalties, which is tied for third in the league. That will kind of, if Hargrave and Armstead, you were touching on that, if Hargrave and Armstead do play in this game, expect the Niners to get pressure up the middle. So I think, yeah, I think we'll be able to get pressure for sure. For sure. So
Yeah, and it's got to be smart pressure. It's not the type of pressure like you try to get on a quarterback who, is static in the pocket, right? It's a
yeah,
different sort
yeah,
of pressure, and making sure that you're not, opening any rushing lanes. You have to continue to set the edge. So it's different. And the good thing is the 49ers have had some preparation for that in lesser ways like Kyler and Jalen Hurts. I mean, I know we already talked about Lamar being different, but no doubt, like they've had some very good prep for this kind of matchup going into it. So I don't think it'll be foreign to them at all. And just making small tweaks for the
Yeah,
unique challenge that Lamar gives to you.
I agree. Tommy Huxley, Baltimore barely beat the LA Yams. Yeah. He's always coming in here talking trash, so we'll leave it at that. Mrs. CG says, Ravens fan here. We both need a win. Niners needed to. Oh, okay, we got a Ravens fan. Nice. We both need to win. Niners needed to maintain number 1 seed. Ravens need to win, and Browns need to lose at least two. Wait, so hold on. Let me regroup. Ravens need to win, and Browns need to lose to at least claim the. Hold on. Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, they
Lose
haven't
two
won their
at least to
division yet.
claim the division. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I am
so they
that's my bad.
oh good. But yeah, so it is a must-win game, and not just for the playoff implications and all that for either team, but also I think for bragging rights, right? And it's very
Mhm.
unique for this late in the season for 2 10-3 teams to be playing each other, or 11-3, sorry, teams to be playing
Yeah.
each other. um and so yeah, I think it's gonna be, both teams are gonna be really motivated in their own way to get this win.
Let's see here. Tommy says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Merry Christmas to you too. Um, Grandizer says, what kind of earbuds do you guys use? What is the range of those? I like to get some. I just use the AirPod Pros. Did you get because I know that there was like the Gen 2s or something that now has like the volume adjustment on them. Do you have those?
I have so these are the older AirPods.
Oh, okay.
I just recently bought the AirPod Maxes, which are awesome, but I don't like wearing them for the lives because I don't know, it just seems like too much to wear like over ear headphones.
Yeah.
So I just use these old AirPods. But they're great, I think, for like streaming and potting because they're just just little small buds.
Yeah. No, I like these ones as well. I know that they came out with some new ones, but the new ones that they came out with are so weird. Like they're like the stick here is like longer. It just looks in my opinion, it looks really goofy. I think it's like the maybe it's the AirPod 3, AirPod 2, whatever it is. But yeah. Um, Carcast, they love to use the tight ends as well. Watch out for Isaiah
Yeah,
Likely, who is in for the start. Well, I guess Mark Andrews is injured, so
yeah.
yeah, I don't know if he's as good one-on-one. It definitely helps that they don't have Mark Andrews because he's one of the best tight ends in the league. But Isaiah Likely, I mean, he stepped in last year as well and did a really good job stepping in for Mark Andrews. So he's right there. Yep.
Yeah, and the 49ers struggled a bit with Trey McBride, this past
Mm,
weekend. So, I would expect Baltimore to see some of what was working with McBride. McBride's a beast. I think he's
mm-hmm.
probably a bit of an outlier, even in his young career, right? But, just something to look out for. The 49ers historically this season and, in the last couple of years, they've been really great at defending against tight ends, but the linebackers are going to have their hands full between keeping their eye on Lamar at all times and also, looking out for Isaiah Likely, whose role has grown the past few weeks.
Yeah. Um, This is kind of a funny one. Let's take a minute to honor the father of the Arizona Cardinals, Christian McCaffrey. He scored 7 TDs on them this season. I saw that in the game. He tied the most TDs scored on a single team in one season. He tied like the running back record of like, I think it was
Yeah.
like Marshall Falk had 7 TDs on some team. It's crazy what happened there on Sunday. So yes, he's definitely their dad, as we like to call it. So let's see here. I didn't know weather reports, chance for drizzle, 54 Fahrenheit. That should be good weather. I don't know. I think the Niners have always been a decent cold weather team. So, and another thing is like if they get the first seed, they won't have to ever play in Philly, and that was the big thing I think to me is like playing in Philly in the middle of January is a whole different beast because it's not only like raining, it's also extremely cold. Difference between like we played in Philly a few weeks ago, but that's also warmer weather. It was like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
So yes, it was raining, but it wasn't like extremely cold.
Yeah.
So that's another plus of getting the 1 seed for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can avoid playing on the East Coast, in the winter, you got to do it. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the rain. It probably won't even end up, raining or drizzling at all. Sunday, if I had to guess, because it never really rains in Santa Clara. But yeah, even if it's a little drizzle, I don't think it'll be enough to impact the game. So
Yeah. Um, are you getting drunk on root beer again? You have difficulty reading the comments. Hey, think what you want. No, no, I don't know. I'm not sure. But he did bring up a good point, Grandizer. Score prediction for the game. Let's get to that because that's our next topic. We don't have to spend much time on this, but what is your score prediction for this game, Ravens versus 49ers?
yeah, I haven't thought about this yet. I think it's potential to be high scoring. Just because I think as good as the Ravens defense is, like I think they could still be scored on. Like I think even against the Jags, there were plenty of opportunities for the Jags to score, and it
Right.
just didn't work out for them. But it wasn't because of the Ravens defense, so much as just some issues on the Jags side. And so I think the 49ers are going to be able to score some points in this one. I haven't seen a defense, aside from the Browns, and that was when the 49ers were missing Trent and Debo. I haven't seen a defense convincingly stop this offense, right? So I'm going to go with the 49ers. Shoot, let's see. I'm going to say 32-27. I don't know. And just throwing some numbers at the wall.
It's it's a little early to honestly. It's I agree with you. It's so hard to predict the game right. I don't know. I think it's going to be if there's anything I know about the Niners like earlier in the season I would always predict like against the Eagles, I projected them to score 24 points. At this point with this Niners offense, it doesn't matter who they're playing, they're going to get
Yeah.
close to 30. So I'm going to say 30-27. I think the Niners defense will be good. I think the Ravens offense is just going to be they're going to they're going to come up with ways to get. I mean, they have Todd Monken, a way better offensive coordinator than their last one last year, Greg Roman. So there's going to be ways that the Ravens come up with to score. And I think it's really just going to come down to the important stops in the game. Can the 49ers stop them maybe a few times in the red zone? Can they maybe get a key takeaway? So it's really going to be if they make the stops when it really matters. And I think that's what they're going to do. I used to always pick against the Niners, but it's at this point, it's like they're so dominant. It's really hard to. So I'm going to pick the Niners 30-27 winning this one. And I think really what just matters is if the 49ers can stop them at the right time and the second half adjustments as well. So
Yeah, the 49ers have made a lot of really good teams look silly this year. And
mhm.
I do hold the Ravens to a slightly different standard, but at the same time, like if the 49ers are healthy on defense, I'm gonna feel even better about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because they've they haven't just beaten good teams, like, they have curb stomped them. And and so,
Yeah.
just based on that alone, like, I gotta feel good about the 49ers. But yeah, I say 32-27 because the injuries on the defensive side of the ball still a little unclear. Um, so I'm that's my score prediction, assuming that maybe a guy or two, one of those key guys we talked about, is going to remain out in this game.
Yeah. Um, Tommy Huxley has a good comment. Ravens have good safeties and linebackers. Usually, what the Niners try to exploit and hold on. Usually, what the Niners try and exploit is weak players at those positions. Might have to go deep on them and establish the run. I agree. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles both have kind of had an issue with their linebackers blended tackling and everything else. And I mean that's true. The Ravens have really good players in the second level. I will say that their defensive tackles aren't like super elite at stopping the run. Kind of, I can't bring up the numbers right now at the time, but um, that's definitely something like establishing the run, as you said, is going to be key. And I think we'll be able to do that. So,
Yeah, I think so too. And again, like watching the Jags game, because like I haven't watched a ton of the Rams game. I actually do need to watch them in that
mhm.
Rams game. But yeah, watching them against the Jags, like I thought that I'm trying to pull up Travis Etienne stats. Um okay, he had
Well,
3.1
I
yards
know.
per carry, 31 yards. But like there were
Yeah.
some it it's so they only ran him 10 times. It feels like they could have probably ran him a little bit more. There were some runs where I thought like, "Oh, like that's some decent yardage. If he could do that, Christian McCaffrey can probably get a little bit more than that just because like it's Christian freaking McCaffrey." Um so yeah, if the 49ers need to establish the run at some point and play the game a little bit differently, this is a great point by Tommy that yeah, I mean Kyle does usually try to exploit those positions. So maybe, gonna look at something else to attack in this game. And if the run game needs to be there, I feel good about Christian McCaffrey being able to run the ball. I see Grandizer is asking, player of the game for the 49ers in this win. I think it could be Christian McCaffrey. I think it could be Debo. I think it could be Brock Purdy. Like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet, but those are the guys to me that when it
Yeah.
comes to playing these big games, those are the guys who I look to step up.
Hmm.
And, lately Debo Samuel's been that guy. So I kind of think he'll continue that.
Well, I mean, you look at Broderick Washington. Say what you will about PFF grades. I think they're kind of helpful if you're just like a viewer watching and you haven't really like delved into all the film, which it's really hard for at least me, a school kid. So like I go back to kind of PFF grades and kind of things. Broderick Washington, because they play a lot 3-4. So what you'll see is like they a lot of times, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney or Patrick Queen, you see him a lot of times coming up from the second level and blitzing through the middle. You kind of get that like he's a speedy linebacker, but he blitzes and he pressures the quarterback a lot. And what he'll do is he'll line up, I think, over the center, and he'll like the Ravens like to get a lot of pressure from that middle offensive line part with Patrick Queen coming up from the second level and getting to the quarterback. But as far as their run game goes, Broderick Washington, one of their defensive tackles, I mean, 42.9 run defense grade throughout the whole season. So he and he usually primarily goes to the right. I think it's the right side of the defensive line. So and if you go back and watch that Rams game, beginning of the game, they started running it to the right side of the offensive line right away on the first drive, and they got a touchdown in that game on the first drive, just running it to the right side basically the whole entire time. So I think if you're going to exploit something, you kind of have to go at guys like Justin Metabuke and Broderick Washington, two guys who I think can be exploited in the run game. And that, so yeah, I think there is, they have a slight weakness in the middle of that defensive line. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers attack them. Um, like I said, it's going to be best against best. So, as a fan of football, I'm just really excited to see how Kyle Shanahan
Yeah.
calls this game, how Brock Purdy kind of handles whatever this Ravens defense throws at him. I think like he's kind of proven that no matter what you try to do against him, whether it's like blitzing, bringing the pressure, or
Mhm.
it's dropping everyone back into coverage, like he's gonna find a way to win. So yeah.
Um, to get you out of here, do you want to quickly touch this, or we don't have to? I think we've covered this kind of already. We
Yeah,
could
I
quickly
said
cover this
for me,
topic.
Debo would be the player of the game. Or are you talking about the MVP conversation?
Yeah, sorry, I
Oh,
never
let's
took
see.
that
Okay.
comment down.
Past this season if they
Hold
um
on, what is it? Yeah, yeah. So what is the 49ers ceiling past the season if they really have an MVP QB? So what I'm meaning by that is kind of if they have an MVP QB on, I didn't write this comment right. If they have an MVP QB on a $900,000 salary, what is their ceiling past this season? Because if you all of a sudden have an elite QB and then making all this a little bit of money, it's like, what is their ceiling? They're obviously going to become contenders for years to come because they have an elite QB and that is making so little money. So,
I might be getting ahead of myself here, but call me crazy, but I feel like Brock Purdy's the kind of very humble guy who would
mhm,
take like a hometown discount a little bit and
mhm,
just so he can keep the guys around him and keep a good team around him, a la Tom Brady, like I could see Brock doing that. It definitely wouldn't surprise me. And so I mean that would open things up for this team even. But in the next couple years while he's still on this like sub $1 million contract or whatever he's on, I mean the sky is the limit for the 49ers, right? I think knowing that Brock is as good as he is right now, and you kind of figure he'll kind of continue to improve in certain areas. I think you could afford to spend on a couple of different things. I think you could afford to extend Brendan Ayuk. I think that should be one of their priorities this off season, and you could probably extend some other guys down the line as well, to make sure that you have a foundation. So I really do think that beyond even beyond this year, this team is going to continue to stay competitive.
yeah. Well, and it saved Kyle Shanahan's job, that's for sure. Because if we were sitting here, I mean, if Brock Purdy doesn't pan out, he's probably fired. I mean, if Brock Purdy wouldn't have come along last season, I think he would have been fired because we wouldn't have made the playoffs last year. So, huge thing there. I apologize, guys, if I can't get to all of your comments. We're running short on time, so I'll answer a few more and then we'll get out of here. Did you discuss the 49ers legend that is Chase Young? Are you happy with his play or not? Your grade on his play so far?
I mean, he's not at like Nick Bosa level, in my opinion. I think
No.
the 49ers, if you've noticed, have actually um reduced his snaps a little bit. Like now he's just
Yeah.
out there on obvious passing downs, and that to me tells me what they feel about, Chase Young, which is, maybe right now he just doesn't have the tools to be in every down, you know, uh, edge rusher. So I think I know a lot of people when the trade happened was like, oh, well, would they extend Chase Young after the season? I don't think they will. Yeah, I don't think they will. I still feel that way. I think it was a great trade for how much they ended up paying for him for like a rental pretty much for the rest of the season. I think it was a smart move on their part. They kind of needed that juice out of, the edge rush position opposite Bosa. I think it bolsters their rotation, which they needed. But beyond that, I don't think he stays in San Francisco beyond this year. And actually, I think that is something the 49ers had in mind when they traded
Yeah.
for him, because they're going to get a comp pick back for him. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just good GMing right there from the 49ers,
Yeah.
John Lynch. So that's just smart. So yeah, that's how I feel about Chase Young.
Yeah. Hit the like. Thank you. And then I'm trying to see here which ones I should maybe answer before we get out of here. I think the IR, if you had a magic wand that would make one player come off of IR completely healthy, I'm going to say, I mean, this is easy. It would be Talanoa Hufanga. Not that Jair Brown's been playing bad, but I think Hufanga just brings that energy to the defense that definitely is going to be missed. So
Yeah, I mean, actually, like the 49ers haven't had that many like key guys
no,
end up
it's
on
like
injured
few
reserve this
guys.
season compared to others. So yeah, I mean, I think Talanoa Hufanga is the obvious choice, because out of everyone that's currently on injured reserve, he's the only starter, right? So I think George
Yeah.
Odom is a close one too, just because the 49ers special teams is not, it's not pretty. George Odom, I think, just for the fact of being that depth too, at safety, but also being that special teams ace, right? Like I think they miss him. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it would be Hufanga for me, for sure. That's an easy one.
Snoopy Cortez coming in here. So welcome. No way we would be crazy to fire him or Lynch. I was saying more last year if we missed the playoffs, there would be consideration to fire him, which I think a lot of people would agree with me on. I mean, you can't miss the playoffs with the team of this caliber. Obviously, you had a lot of bad quarterback luck last year, but I don't know. Anyways, I think I did a pretty good job at answering some of the comments. I apologize once again if I did not get to them all, but tell them one more time. I guess I didn't do this at the beginning of the show, but tell them where they can find you and promote any links that you want to promote.
Yeah, you guys can find my content at Steph49K at pretty much all the major social media platforms on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Steph49K. My podcast is 49 Carats Podcast. You can find that on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, Ben, thanks for having me on. I had a blast. Thank
Yeah.
you for all the people in the chat who asked questions. Yeah, you guys kept this chat popping and interesting, so
Yeah.
we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again soon. And like she said, thank you to everyone in the chat, and all the people who joined us on this. I guess for me it would be Wednesday morning, but for you guys it would be Tuesday night. So thank you everyone for coming on. Follow me at the Camper Report. Just type that up, and I mean Twitter and YouTube are my main. I guess X you call it now are my main ones. But just type that up, and you'll be able to find me. So, thanks everyone for watching. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see. I'll probably see you later on in the week with maybe another live with another Ravens content creator that I'm trying to get on. So, look for that. Go Niners.